We're good. All right. Thank you everyone for attending. This is this evening, and those watching the recording at a later date. We appreciate you taking the time to listen in this very important forum. We do ask that all attendants keep their video off and their sound muted for this forum. We do have support behind the scenes to ensure that this happens as well. So please don't worry if you're unsure how a person would do that. We are recording today's video and have all candidates showing on the side of the screen to be seen throughout the forum. We want to remind everyone, though, that settings are different on everyone's device, so we at the Chamber do not have complete control of what you may or may not see during this event. Although we cannot run through all the various settings on different devices, we can provide some recommendations for best viewing. Viewing in gallery mode is ideal. This should allow you to see the candidates throughout the forum. This option should be found on the top right corner, a checkered box entitled View. We recommend turning off the options of Show Non-Video Participants. This will hide all the other attendee boxes you see. This helps create a cleaner view in your screen, and you can do this by hovering over one of the boxes, clicking the three dots on the top right corner and making sure the option is checked off. Welcome to the Salmon Arm Chamber of Commerce Federal All Candidates Forum. My name is Adam Meikle, and I'm pleased to be your moderator this evening. Before we start this event, I wanted to let you know that Chamber is a membership-driven organization that works on behalf of our members and represents the collective voice of our business community. We have a volunteer board of directors, and I'm one of them, I guess. Joining us this evening through the All Candidates Forum. However, that's for our board members are attending but not heard publicly. Questions were collected from the community in advance and will be presented during this question and answer period. The forum will be recorded and posted tomorrow as well. Okay, so a quick run through of the agenda. We will introduce all of the candidates, in their last name alphabetically, and then we will have opening remarks. This will be followed by the question and answer period, closing remarks, and then we'll have provide final details. So I guess we will introduce all of our lovely candidates. I'd like to introduce Mel Arnold from the Conservative Party, if you want to wave at us. Kyle Delfing from the People's Party. Shelley Desautels, did I get that right? Yeah. Hi. Andrea Gunner from the Green Party, and Ron Johnston from the NDP. Welcome, everyone. Our open forum officially will have opening remarks from all of our candidates. We will allot 5 minutes per candidate, and we will start with the Conservative Party, represented by Mel Arnold, if you will.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Salmon Arm Chamber of Commerce for hosting this important forum tonight in the traditional territory of the Secwepemc. I'm here tonight as the Conservative candidate to share our positive vision for the future, and I look forward to answering the questions that you have submitted. Tonight's forum is so important. Over the past 6 years, I've heard people in our region express their concerns on many different issues as varied as the good people and the beautiful landscape of the North Okanagan Shuswap. Issues such as affordability, housing, accessibility, and many, many more. We must rein in government spending and inflation immediately to address the affordability challenges, like the price of groceries going up and gas that has risen 30% in the last year alone. Housing prices that have exploded, making it nearly impossible for young people to own their own homes. Conservatives have a plan to address these runaway costs by promoting grocery competition, lowering cell phone and internet rates, by introducing more competition. We've also committed to building 1 million more homes to tackle the lack of inventory that is making home ownership so expensive. We are also committed to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, a process established by the former Conservative government. And we will do that under the guidance and direction of Indigenous communities, and we will work collaboratively on preserving their culture and building economic opportunity for them. Over the past 18 months, our health has become a major focus across the globe, whether it's the virus and the pandemic itself or the mental health challenges as a result. I believe we have all become much more aware of how much more attention our health deserves. That's why we are determined to make mental health a priority by increasing health transfers to treat an additional 1 million Canadians with mental health concerns, as well as adding another 325 million to add an additional 1,000 beds for addiction recovery. Our health is directly impacted by the environment around us as well. And Canadians are seeing how directly we are connected to that environment, particularly in a year when heat domes and raging wildfires have dominated our summer. Seeing and understanding this, our Conservative Party is committed to our plan titled Secure the Environment. We will fight climate change, but we won't do it on the backs of hardworking Canadians. I would encourage everyone watching to have a look at our Conservative platform at conservative.ca/plan. I'm proud of it, and I believe you will find that there is something positive in it for every Canadian in every walk of life. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Mel. We will go on to opening remarks from Kyle Delfing, the People's Party of Canada.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you to the Salmon Chamber of Commerce for holding this tonight. I'd just like to let people know that the People's Party of Canada is doing politics differently. And one of the ways we're doing it differently is we're looking to abolish the Indian Act by bringing all the Aboriginal leaders in this country together with the government to find a way out and a way forward so that we can raise our Aboriginal brothers and sisters to an equal level with Canadians. As we've seen in the last 18 months of government, we have both the Conservatives and the Liberals failing to really take this country forward and out of the pandemic. We've been in a weird state of limbo. But furthermore, we've seen churches burn, we've seen statues fall, and we've seen even cities burn. And we're blaming all sorts of social, economic, and quote unquote climate crisis for this. The People's Party of Canada understands that there's a better way forward. We're looking to initiate an economic recovery by getting out of this crisis of COVID-19, using a practical approach to getting the economy back on its feet and having Canadians back at work, able to provide for themselves again. Another thing we'd like to focus on is clean environments, because we've been talking about climate change as a climate crisis or climate emergency for a very long time, but no government has acted as if it was an emergency. The People's Party of Canada understands that climate change is a reality and that we must deal with it. We will not propose a tax. In fact, we propose to get rid of the carbon tax nationally. And even if we can't get rid of it provincially, it will still help British Columbians at the dinner table and to provide heat and clothing, as price of goods has soared over the last few years with the federal carbon tax. The other thing we need to stop doing to get affordability back down is over-borrowing. We're borrowing far too much money as a government. We went from an $8 billion surplus to a $10 billion deficit to a $30 billion deficit to a $316 billion deficit. It's uncontrollable and it's dividing our dollars. It's creating inflation. Inflation doesn't make you wealthier. It actually makes it harder for you to purchase wealth. It divides your dollar. The other thing we like to propose that no party out here, including the Conservatives, is proposing is restoring private property rights to gun owners, to all law-abiding gun owners, by abolishing the order in cabinet. On top of that, I'd like to say that this country is facing a crisis like it's never faced in its entire, it's never seen this coming down the pipe. We have a vaccine passport system here in British Columbia, and that may be provincial right now, but it is an interim measure until the next federal government, whether it be Conservative, NDP, or Liberal, take over, and they will initiate a federal vaccine passport system. There's a ballot box question. This is more of a referendum than it is an election. We have many great policies that you can check out at peoplespartyofcanada.ca. But the best policy is the fact that we will fight the institution of the implementation of the vaccine passport system across Canada, and we will fight the ones that are implemented. We will help Canadians fight their provincial government to get rid of these. As we see on October 12th, you'll see all these people here tell you about, they worry about the elderly and the sick. Well, the long-term nurses that are losing their job on October 12th will not be taking a vaccine, and they will be losing their job, and those elderly and those sick will have a lesser care. On October 26th, as of today, there are nurses, doctors, and anybody else in healthcare losing their job. This country is going to have a hard time dealing with the sick. In Kamloops alone, they're over 130% capacity, and they're running at 60% for their staff. It's time to get serious about this. This country is built on freedom. The federal government's #1 duty is life and liberty. You protect life and you protect liberty. And the Conservatives and the NDP and the Liberals have failed to do that for the last 18 months. In fact, they're taking us down a course that many Canadians are dissatisfied with. It's time to change the course of this nation. In the North Okanagan Shuswap, you have an opportunity to split the vote and not worry about getting a Liberal seat in or an NDP seat. If you divide the votes between the Conservatives and the People's Party of Canada, there's 19,000 votes. That's a few thousand votes away from the Liberals' best year, and this is not a good year to be a Liberal. I promise you, if you put me into the House of Commons, I will be one of a handful of People's Party of Canada members of Parliament who will stand firm and stand tall for your rights and your freedom and everything that people have died and fought for in this country. I'm a vocal person. Let's get my foot in the door. Let's get our foot in the door. This is the People's Party of Canada. This is not the Conservative Party. This is not the Liberal Party, the People's Party. We stand for the people. We have no whip. We talk for you. If I fail, it's because I didn't make you happy and I didn't protect your life and your liberty. Put us into the House of Commons and watch this country change for the better. We need to get back to normal, and nobody here is going to offer you that tonight except for myself and the People's Party of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. On to Shelley with the Liberals.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Desautels, and I am running as the candidate for the Liberal Party here in the North Okanagan Shuswap. I would like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you now from the traditional and unceded territory of the Secwepemc people and the chosen home for the Salmon Métis Nation. I want to thank the Chamber for hosting us this evening, and I especially want to thank you for joining us this evening. First, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I decided to put myself forward as a candidate. I was born and raised in Vernon, and I have lived here in Salmon Arm for 7 years. I have a degree in geography from UBCO and an advanced diploma in geographic information systems from BCIT. I am the spouse of a Canadian Forces veteran, the mother of 2 teenagers, an instructor at Okanagan College, and the owner of a mapping business. I also serve on several boards in the community, as well as being the service officer at the Royal Canadian Legion. The decision to run for elected office was not one that I took lightly. Clearly, I am someone who likes to be involved in the community, but this was an opportunity to help in my community on a scale that I haven't been able to before. As a lifelong resident of both Vernon and Salmon Arm, I have a unique understanding of the diverse needs of this sprawling riding, and I have been witness to the lack of representation that our communities have received for a very long time. Rather than continue to be dissatisfied with the representation and service that the North Okanagan Shuswap has received, I decided to put my name forward and try to fix this. As my friends and colleagues will tell you, I am a fixer. We deserve someone who represents our needs and challenges to Ottawa rather than represent their party to us. Since I began my journey to first become the nominee and now to run for Member of Parliament, I have had the opportunity to visit every corner of this vast riding. I've come to meet a diverse group of people who are united by living in this little corner of paradise. I have heard how the pandemic has led us to new challenges, but also how the Liberal Party has been able to support you through those challenges. Whether you lost your job, your business slowed down, or you've even had to close for periods of time, I've heard how the child care benefit has made a huge difference every month to your families, and how the COVID top-ups for seniors has provided breathing room for so many of you and your older family members. I have heard how relieved many of you felt, as I did, when you were able to receive your COVID vaccines, and how glad you were that we were able to get so many vaccines soon after they were available. I've also heard how many of you are now seeking to come out of COVID with a stronger family, a stronger community, and a stronger country. Our platform has been deemed to be the most climate effective and affordable. Our housing plan, the plan that comes closest to achieving housing affordability, and our child care plan will massively improve affordability. And the most credible fiscal plan, realistic, responsible, and transparent, all while continuing to take a strong position on how we fight COVID-19, continuing meaningful reconciliation, promoting equality, diversity, and inclusion, protecting and improving Canada's public health system, enhancing support for seniors and their caregivers, and putting Canada on a path to a fair and equitable country. We have come through a challenging couple of years together, and our world has changed a lot since we've had a national conversation about these vital issues. Tonight, I hope to share with you both my vision and what we can build together, and my commitment to you and our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shelley. We will hear from Andrea with the Green Party.
Hello, thank you, Adam. Thank you to the Salmon Arm Chamber of Commerce and to all of the attendees this evening. Thank you for coming. A little bit of background on me. I'm an agricultural economist and I'm a farmer. I grew up in Vernon, went away to university and to work in, of course, the metropolis of Vancouver, as so many of us, and then returned to the Okanagan, to the North Okanagan, and my husband and I farm and live in Spellmachine. I am a business owner. I have been in government at the provincial level. I have been in the school system as a teacher. I have been on boards at the municipal, industry, provincial, national, and international level. I work collaboratively. I like wearing a lot of hats, and I have a deep and abiding respect for the beauty and the dynamic of this region that we call home. My reason for running for the Green Party is I have a really strong belief that in order to move forward, we need more equality, not less. And the last 18 months have seen that equality gap widen. The Green Party understands that there cannot be climate action in any real tangible way until we have better social equality. We also, in order to do that, need to work across party lines. We need to work at all levels of government and with community organizations. We need to reduce the inequality so that we can actually take real, tangible steps towards reducing our carbon emissions and actually drawing down the carbon that we are releasing into the atmosphere. One of the ways of doing that, of course, is reducing inefficiency, working smarter, not just harder, and also reducing waste. If you look at countries around the world, the ones that have the highest ranking, international ranking for health, well-being, and happiness of their citizens, all those governments have either a coalition or a minority government that Greens are a part of. The reason for that is because of the belief in social equality. And with that, we can address climate action in a way without despair, actually with hope, to bring our diverse ideas, our creativity, our ingenuity. Canada is such a rich, rich country, and we don't get any further ahead if we're working at cross purposes. We need to work together. I would really like to represent this riding in Ottawa and help bring that collaborative nature to problem solving, to working across party lines for the betterment of you, the constituents, and the population of the North Okanagan-Shuswap. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. We're heading on to Ron with the NDP.
Thank you, Adam. And I'd like to also thank the Salmon Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the unceded traditional territory of Syilx Okanagan peoples. My name is Ron Johnston, and I'm your NDP candidate for North Okanagan-Shuswap. I was born and raised in Calgary, and I've enjoyed a career in mechanical design that had me working for high-tech companies and brought me into the interior in the year 2000. It's because of that design background that I've built a very real understanding that complex challenges require creative solutions. And if you want a solution to succeed, you need to involve everyone who will be affected, engage them in a spirit of collaboration and equality. Volunteerism has also been important to me, from many years spent with the Calgary Aerospace Museum after college to being the director and eventually vice president of the Prince George Downtown Association before shifting that energy into supporting the NDP. For several years, I've worked with both the provincial and federal NDP EDAs, having most recently worked on the successful campaign of our current MLA, Harwinder Sandhu. We all know the pandemic has hit hard for many families in the North Okanagan-Shuswap. Between job loss and rising costs, getting by day and day has become more of a challenge than ever. I understand these challenges firsthand because my family faces the same struggles. That was a big part of my decision to run. Working class people are vastly underrepresented in politics, but I'm running to give a voice back to everyday people in the North Okanagan-Shuswap and to make sure that the super rich and corporations pay their fair share of the investment into the pandemic recovery for a better future for all of us. Years of Liberal and Conservative inaction has left us with a lot of catching up to do on issues that are very important to people in the North Okanagan-Shuswap. We've all seen the devastating effects of climate change this past summer, both globally and locally. We spent the first half of summer under a heat dome and most of the second half struggling to breathe from the smoke from the wildfires. Crops were damaged, homes were lost, and vulnerable people lost their lives. We need to take immediate action before it's too late. We've also seen how fragile our healthcare and long-term care systems are. Throughout the pandemic, things have been stretched thin. That's why we are committed to an end of for-profit healthcare and long-term care. And we simply must address issues around affordability and housing. Too many hard workers and families are being left behind as housing costs skyrocket and wages stagnate. Local small businesses are facing many of the same challenges, and with rising rents, merchant fees, and telecom costs combined with shortage of staff that lead to reduced operating hours. And we must make real meaningful progress on Indigenous justice and reconciliation and move it to the forefront of everything our government is doing, from implementing the 94 call to action to including Indigenous leaders at decision-making tables on how we address climate change, conservation, water quality, and so much more. Unlike a lot of what you'll be hearing from the Liberals and Conservatives, these are not new ideas for the NDP. The NDP celebrated 60 years as a workers' party this summer, and we have always fought to put people first. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you all candidates for your opening remarks. It's time for the question and answer period. We will officially be keeping track of time and advise candidates as time remains. We ask all candidates to assist us by being respectful to the allotted time. Questions were submitted by community members via email to the Chamber Administration. We received over 40 questions. A special thank you to the community members who took the time to submit their question. From these questions, we considered, or condensed rather, them into key categories and revised them into their final form for tonight's event. Due to the overwhelming submission and array of topics, we have decided to ask a total of 20 questions. Each question will be answered by 2 candidates. The question order has been randomly drawn in advance of tonight's forum. To ensure transparency and equity, the names will be drawn tonight by myself on the screen, and I will ask the 2 candidates, and then we will move on to the next question. The remaining candidates until such time as we complete all the question and answer portion of this program. Equally important, we recognize the importance to hear all candidates' responses to these questions. So tomorrow, the chamber will distribute the full list of questions to all the candidates, which provides them an opportunity to respond through their media sources. So for our first question, I will draw a name, 2 names rather, and they are Ron and Kyle. We'll start with Ron. You have 1 minute to respond, and we'll give you a 15-second reminder so you know when your time is running out. What is your party's position on the issue of firearms and the changes that have been made to them? First with Ron.
Well, as we've seen in recent years, too many lives have been lost to gun crime in Canada, and we believe that everyone deserves to feel safe in their community. Time and again, the Liberals and Conservatives have used the issue of gun control to divide and polarize Canadians. The Liberals have had 6 years to act, but they've been more interested in politicking and haven't gotten assault-style weapons off our streets. So the NDP are committed to keep assault weapons and illegal guns off of our streets permanently. We will do more to stop the smuggling of guns across the border from the US, and we will prevent violence at its roots by ensuring all young people in Canada have options for success and hope for the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. And Kyle, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you, Adam. So the People's Party of Canada is quite unique in the fact that we're not going to use law-abiding gun owners anymore as a political pawn. What we're going to do is we're going to restore private property rights to law-abiding gun owners, all law-abiding gun owners. The 1,500 plus, I think it's over 3,000 guns that have been, illegally taken from Canadians in an unjust manner. They're called assault rifles, as Ron said. Well, the difference between an SKS and a 30-30 is not much. It's about the same caliber. And it's just that the 30-30 looks like an old Western rifle, and the SKS came out of some Soviet wars. There's nothing scary about these rifles. Most people who purchase those assault rifles purchase it because it comes from munition stockpiles, surplus, and surplus is cheap. So for $1.35, you can practice your aim with a SKS, and then you can go out for $1.50 and you can try that 30-30. So we'll restore the gun rights, and we'll make sure that RCMP and politicians just can't take your guns willy-nilly ever again.
Thank you, Kyle. I will draw names for the next question. It's just Kyle and Ron in opposite order, but that's the way it was drawn. So, okay, the next question, and we'll start with Kyle. The COVID pandemic has exposed our long-term care system's flaws at a terrible cost in lives. Some believe federal legislation should make long-term care and home care part of our public care system. What is your position on long-term care facilities? What are you prepared to do to change the legislation around the operation of long-term care homes? We'll start with Kyle.
One of the biggest issues in Canada is the federal healthcare transfer. It's not scrutinized or audited. Money goes into indiscriminate spending sometimes, not all the time. What we want to do is eliminate that kind of situation by taking funding out of the hands of Ottawa and put healthcare funding into the hands of the provinces. How do we do that? We get rid of the GST points, no longer collect GST, which is about 40 billion plus a year, and we put that which is the same as the healthcare transfer payments into the hands of the provinces. There will be a couple poorer provinces that cannot afford that. So we'll figure out an equalization formula for that so they can get adequate care. The positive in this is that there's only one politician between you and your tax dollars and adequate care. So you can demand your MLA provide better care, whether it be in long-term care or in your healthcare, or even if it be in your GP. So that is one of the biggest differences that we're looking at, is getting Ottawa back into its constitutional role of just legislating but not administering or funding healthcare. That's the province's job, and it'll make it easier for you, the taxpayer, to get better services all around.
Thank you, Kyle. Ron, we'll let you respond.
Well, plain and simple, profit should never be the bottom line when it comes to our seniors. Our seniors' lives are more valuable than corporate profit. Canadians were horrified to see the conditions in our long-term care facilities during the pandemic. Justin Trudeau teamed up with Erin O'Toole and voted against taking profit out of long-term care. And the Liberals have no problem bringing in a pipeline under public ownership, but they won't do the same with Rivera to save lives. So it's time to take the profit out of long-term care. New Democrats will end for-profit delivery and bring long-term care homes under the public umbrella, and will introduce a care guarantee for seniors, including national standards for care and working conditions in long-term homes.
Thank you, Ron. I will draw names for the next question. Hopefully we got different people. Shelley and Mel. So our next question is, Bill C-10 is an act to amend the Broadcasting Act, removing requirements that all broadcasters buy fully owned by Canadians, removes the 7-year term limit for the CTRC issued broadcast licenses, and adds a mechanism for imposing conditions on broadcasters without them being bound to the license term. The bill also introduces monetary fines for violating orders and regulating issues by the CTRC. Please share your views or position on Bill C-10, as there is significant concerns that in its current form, it would infringe on freedom of speech online. And we'll start with Shelley.
Thank you. So the bill is intended to level the playing field by applying the same rules that traditional broadcasters are held under, such as Netflix and Amazon Prime. Right now, they're not regulated. So we're not after your personal social media accounts. We're not interested in controlling what you're posting. This bill is intended to specifically address the topic of Canadian content, so that Canadian artists are supported with their content being more and more viewed by people that are using these streaming services. There were some issues with section 4.1 being removed, but this has been amended, and the wording was removed, and the Heritage Committee agreed that it does not infringe on freedom of expression. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. And Mel, would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Adam. And Bill C-10 certainly has been a concern. I heard it from many, many people in my office over the past months. As Shelley stated, it was originally introduced as a bill to level the playing field between the big online giants and smaller Canadian material producers. But what happened was, when that bill was at committee stage, the Liberal members voted to remove the clause that protected personal online content. They could not explain why they did that, and that's why has been so much concern, is that it is going to impact your ability to post your personal online views. Bill C-36 that came out in the dying hours of Parliament is as bad or worse, and they've also looked at further draft legislation that could limit your freedom of expression. That's why it's a concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Now we will go on to our next question. I'll draw a name. It's Andrea and Shelley. Our next question is on affordability. Rental housing rates are at an extremely high price with extremely low availability. What will your party do to encourage construction of much needed affordable rental housing? And Andrea, you could do first.
Thank you, Adam. There are a number of different models that are used in other parts of the world where real estate is as expensive or more expensive than in Canada. As crazy as it is here, there are other places that have already led the charge on that. So one of the options that we already have in this area are cooperative housing, co-housing, Abbeyfield type communities. And what has been happening recently in order to address lower income as well as medium income families to do construction are collaborations across many layers of government together with community groups. So churches being involved in that, other kinds of housing advocacy, as well as BC Housing and the Canadian Housing Mortgage Corporation. Here in Salmon Arm, as an example, one of those collaborations is responsible for building.
Thank you, Andrea. Sorry
housing.
about that. And we will go on to Shelley's response. Thank you.
1 minute is very short to answer all of this because we have a huge platform, but we have a rent to own program that's going to allow you to pay less on your rent to then put towards a down payment on your home. We're going to have an anti-flipping tax, which is going to stop the raising of prices on homes by people who purchase homes just to flip them and have them at a higher cost later on. We are going to add an additional 250,000 units that are built, repaired, or preserved, which is going to bring our total of homes to 1.4 million homes. This is going to add more homes into our market, which is going to support people being able to get into this housing market. We are going to have a home buyer's bill of rights, which is going to ban blind bidding. It's going to have a legal right to home inspection. It's going to provide a bunch of things for the buyers. So we have this fantastic plan. It's called A Home for Everyone. And I really encourage you guys to look at it because it's much bigger than what I can say in a minute.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm going to draw names for our next question. Mel and Kyle, our next question. What is your party's stance on a Canadian organic agriculture program? And we'll start with Mel.
Thank you, Adam. Our platform includes many pieces that are also tied into our plan to secure the environment. We recognize that agriculture can be a huge part of carbon sequestration and reducing our emissions. We have companies right here in Salmon Arm working on the further processing animal waste so that it goes out onto the fields differently. That's just one example right here close to home where we can work both with the organic and the traditional agriculture sectors to build our better agricultural community here in Canada. Then we can also take that knowledge and experience and technology and market around the world to, as I say, increase our capacity of our organic sector and our non-organic as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Kyle.
Grow Canada's GDP. We want to build a robust economy. Organic agriculture would definitely be part of that economy. As Mel was saying, we can offshore get a lot of that technology going out after we promote research and development. From an economic standpoint, that's where our party differs from the rest of the parties. We are looking to eliminate the capital gains tax altogether, which has been around since 1972. The advantage to this is it'll free up capital from Canadian investors to Canadian developers. So if we are going to start these organic agriculture programs, like Mel said again, they're often smaller operations. So to have that capital flowing from private hands and not just from the government should help these investors and help these engineers create these programs and the farmers develop the system and then sell that to the world. But we can't do that until we start getting Canadians investing in Canadians again. And that's where the People's Party of Canada differentiates itself from the rest of the people up here. We're not offering to take your tax dollars and promote something. We're offering to let you keep your tax dollars and promote something.
Thank you, Kyle. We'll draw names. It's Mel and Ron this time. Did we lose Ron? Is he there? Do we have audio for Ron? Sorry, we're just making sure that we can both answer. First, I guess for smoothness, Mel is starting, so I will ask the question. Is Ron kicking around? He's in, so he can hear us. Okay, so our next question, starting with Mel. Okay, it's not on our screen, but I'll try to articulate well here. Salmon stocks have declined significantly and continue to do so. As this is a federal responsibility, please articulate your party's plan and timeline towards recovery and growth of BC wild Pacific salmon stocks. And we'll start with Mel.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to at least start into this question on a subject that is so complex. After 6 years almost of sitting on the standing committee for fisheries, one of the first things I saw is that we need integrated fisheries management plans to manage fish stocks. It's been pointed out that the department has only committed to develop a plan to develop those plans. That was pointed out to the Liberal government about 4 to 5 years ago. They still haven't accomplished that. They've committed millions of dollars without any plan to do that. We recognize that we need to work with small local conservation organizations like the Pacific Salmon Foundation, who know what it's going to take to rebuild those salmon stocks. And we also need to work with our Indigenous communities right across BC, up and down the coast, to make sure that Indigenous communities have the input into that rebuilding of those salmon stocks.
Thank you, Mel. Ron, can you turn on your video so we can see your lovely face again? Oh, we have him. There he is. Okay, Ron, I will let you respond there.
All right, sorry about that. We had a power failure here. The NDP are committed to pursuing a nature conservation agenda, and we will protect 30% of our land, freshwater, and oceans by 2030. And we will also expand our national parks and restore biodiversity and ensure that the Species at Risk Act is enforced. And protecting land and waters will help Canada meet its climate change goals while safeguarding a good quality of life for generations. New Democrats will stand up to the abuse of power by polluters, the harms of which disproportionately impact remote and marginalized communities. And we will support Indigenous-led conservation and land use and climate planning, including growing the Indigenous Guardians program and working hand in hand to advance protection and restoration of wild Pacific salmon populations on the West Coast.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, I will draw a name for our next question. We have Kyle and Andrea. And our question is, a huge spike in inflation rate reached 3.7 in July, significantly greater than the 2% target. Everything from home prices, building supplies, gasoline, groceries, and even services have increased substantially. What is your party prepared to do to curb the escalating rate of inflation? Kyle first.
Well, it's going to take some drastic measures because it took some very drastic measures to increase that inflation at that rate. Like I said in the opening there, $316 billion deficit, it's got to go. Don't let anybody trick you into thinking that if we get rid of it, the country's going to suffer. It's suffering because we have it. The debt that we have, 84%, I think it's actually up to 86% increase of our national debt in the last 18 months. That is why we were at almost 4% inflation. To further that, in the spring, we were encroaching 14% inflation on building materials, which equates to a lack of affordable living. All the building materials going into those houses, making the houses far more expensive. The Liberals and the Conservatives will have you fooled thinking $1.4 billion or 1.4 million houses on behest of the taxpayer is going to make life more affordable. It won't. It will only increase inflation because the taxpayer in the hands of the wrong politicians, which these two parties have been for the very long time, is a bottomless pocket. And they will continue to take our money out of that pocket and purchase these homes, competing with us on the fair market. That needs to stop as well. There's many different ways to deal with inflation. We have an economist at the head of our party. He would probably
Sorry,
make the best comment.
that's all.
Thank you.
That's all we got. Thanks, Kyle. And Andrea, if you'd like to respond.
Thank you. Unfortunately, inflation is going to continue to escalate unless we get climate change under control. And so the challenge of that is we know already that crops are 40 to 60% less this year because of the heat dome, because of the drought. We need to get climate change under control. And in order to do that, we need to reduce our subsidies. We need to eliminate our subsidies to the fossil fuel industry and instead support green energy, renewable energy, and find ways of creating efficiencies and reducing waste. I've said this before, but it's so true. We're a very wasteful society. We need to get our costs under control. I completely agree with Kyle that our costs have burgeoned, but I don't think that we're going about it the right way. We did need to support the communities, but now we need to get past the COVID and focus on rebuilding.
Sorry, Andrea, that's all. Thank you. I will draw names again. We have Kyle and Mel. And our next question is on safe drinking water. So safe drinking water should be accessible to each and every person residing in Canada. How will you and your party establish and maintain this minimum standard? And we'll start with Kyle.
Thank you, Adam. So the People's Party of Canada is looking to make life more affordable for Canadians. And one of the ways we'd like to do that is by reduce our overall expenditure on foreign aid. And when we do that, we can bring that money home. We can focus on, I think it's 50 or maybe even 80 reserves out there that have no fresh drinking water. To further that, eliminating the Indian Act would help us negotiate with Aboriginal communities and reserve communities to enhance their infrastructure and make it more self-sustainable so that their government programs were funded and pushed along by capital investment into their communities, as the Indian Act being removed in a cordial manner would allow for that kind of investment inflow. We need to start building all our communities across Canada, both rural and urban. So the People's Party of Canada would definitely focus on that and a clean environment. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Kyle. And on to Mel's response.
Thank you, Adam. And I believe everyone should have the right to clean drinking water. And I've met with First Nations here in the North Okanagan Shuswap over the past 6 years and heard how they have needed resources to be able to provide fresh water, potable, without boiling water advisories to their community members. What this government has failed to do is recognize how complex that is when we have bands with multiple different reserves that have multiple different water systems. It's not just providing one water system in one area. We have communities that are growing that need to have water supply to accommodate their growing populations. We are going to make sure we get infrastructure projects done on the ground, shovels in the ground immediately as soon as we can after we form government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. I'll draw names for the next. We have Shelley and Ron. And our next question. If you look at all the help wanted signs, our labor pool appears to have disappeared. How will you and your party convince people to come back to work, especially when it comes to staffing our health services? or services rather, and we will start with Shelley.
So this is kind of a bigger picture. So we really need to look at not only people getting back to work, but how can we get them to a space where they can go back to work. So this comes down to our childcare plan. There are people there that cannot afford to go to work and pay childcare, therefore they don't work. So our $10 a day childcare plan is going to get people to be able to go back into that workforce. We also need to look at mental health. There are people that do not want to go back to work because over COVID, there has been trauma, there have been mental health issues. So we have a mental health plan that we're going to have mental health transfers into our economy so that we can have the care that is needed. We also have our affordable housing plan. If we do not have homes in our communities for people to live, people cannot work here. So we need to ensure that we have the infrastructure, which I will advocate for as your MP, to get that infrastructure into the North Okanagan Shuswap. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ron, your response.
Thank you. The NDP is committed to helping local businesses and tourism get through the pandemic and beyond. Here in North Okanagan Shuswap, we know how important tourism is to our local economy, and if elected, we will work to reduce the operating costs for these businesses by capping merchant fees, credit card transactions at 1%, lowering internet and cell rates, and those are currently among the highest in the world. My party will implement a hiring bonus that pays the employer portion of EI and CPP contributions, investing in skills and training programs, particularly for underemployed groups, to help get them back into the workforce. Our commitment to $10 a day childcare will also achieve this by opening the door for struggling parents, predominantly women, to work outside the home. And universal pharmacare will give all Canadians access to the medications they need while saving about $600 per employee for businesses that pay health benefits. And we'll freeze tax rates for small businesses and keep rent and wage subsidies in place. All of this will bring a comprehensive package that allows—
Ron, that's all the time, sorry. I will draw names for the next question. Ron and Andrea. And the next question, what is your party's stance on immigration? And we'll start with Ron.
So to start with, we need a fair and compassionate immigration system. Canada is so much stronger when we keep families together and we help newcomers contribute to our communities. Justin Trudeau talked a good game on immigration, but his policies are keeping families apart and leaving newcomers and refugees behind. We're going to focus on policies that work for everyone by keeping families together and having faster reunification that includes grandparents, helping immigrants contribute to the economy by improving foreign credential recognition. This is something that holds back so many immigrants in our country, and doing our fair share to welcome refugees that are fleeing violence and persecution in their home countries.
Thank you, Ron. And Andrea's response.
Canada is a country of immigrants. In fact, with our static growth birth rate, we need immigrants very badly. We have an aging population and we need immigrants to help fulfill those jobs. Just as in the last question, we see that there are lots of jobs that are going unfilled. Without Philippine healthcare workers, for instance, our healthcare system would be in a worse shape than it currently is. One of the challenges that we have with immigration is that the bureaucracy is rather cumbersome. And so there are people who are in a landed immigrant status for years longer than they should be, according to what they're able to do, especially when it's doctors or engineers or professionals that we really need their services. So reducing the cumbersome bureaucracy, reducing the inefficiencies would go a long way towards making sure that those people are available to work as soon as may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I'll draw the names. We have Andrea and Ron. You can tell it's random. Our next question. how will you commit to working with Indigenous peoples, communities, and organizations to ensure compliance with all 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada? And we'll start with Andrea.
Thank you for this question. I don't need to talk about the record of the current government. It stands for itself. What I would really like to address is the fact that there are children being apprehended from our Indigenous communities on an ongoing basis, and that needs to stop. The province of Manitoba has got a pilot program. It was a pilot program 4 years ago. They've now implemented it, where they work with those communities to help repair the trauma and keep those families together and supported so that the children have got better health and education outcomes while staying in their home communities. We need that kind of program all across Canada. That would go some distance towards actually understanding the community needs. We can't visit things on them without working with those Indigenous communities. A minute's not very long. Thank you.
Oops, what did I do? Sorry. I need some technical assistance here. I went full screen. I don't want to see myself. Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm a little bit inept when it comes to this stuff, but I will draw names. Oh, sorry. I'm all flustered now. Ron, can you please have your response there?
Absolutely. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report, including the 94 calls to action. 6 years later, our government has yet to implement the vast majority of them, and our government is also taking Indigenous children and residential school survivors to court in an attempt to overturn the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal decision that ruled in their favor. We would immediately implement all 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We will establish a National Council for Reconciliation, ensure there is funding for a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, fully fund the exploration of grave sites at former residential institutions to bring all the lost children home, and require churches and governments to hand over any and all records that could help finding children who lay in unmarked graves. Give Indigenous communities more control over child welfare systems, appoint a special prosecutor to pursue those who inflict harm on Indigenous children, and protect Indigenous languages with new legislation and stable funding, and fully implement Jordan's principles so that First Nations children are no longer denied the services and supports they need.
Sorry. Thanks, Ron. Now I will pull new names. We have Mel and Shelley. And our next question, if elected, what will be the economic priorities for your government to help small businesses grow substantially across BC? And we'll start with Mel.
Thank you, Adam. This is certainly one of the bigger parts in our platform. We have 5 pillars, and jobs are one of those 5 pillars. We realize how small businesses have been hardest hit, especially our tourism and food service industries. We need to get those businesses back up and running again. And we've seen how even when they try to, they can't.
Um,
25% tax credit. And then for those that have been off for longer periods of time, that tax credit can be up to 50%. We have a rebuild Main Street plan. We have a job surge plan. There's so much there. I hope everyone can take a look at the plan and see everything that's there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. On to Shelley.
So our government has already reduced the taxes for small businesses from the Conservatives' 11% down to our current 9%. We're also going to extend the Canada Recovery Hire Program to March 2022, which is going to allow small businesses to be more competitive in the market, and they're going to be able to increase wages to attract more employees. We're also going to be moving forward with grants to support small businesses to enter the digital world. Talking to employers entering this digital world will allow them to access markets outside of our local economy. So this is really fantastic for them to be able to expand their businesses. We're also going to be increasing accessibility amounts for loans for small businesses to give them a little bit more funding that's going to help them get through and start building their businesses back.
Thanks, Shelley. I will draw names. We have Ron and Mel. And our next question: what supports will you bring in to support the small businesses for mandatory requirements that they are putting in place regarding the vaccine passport? We'll start with Ron.
Biggest thing I see is that we have a patchwork of solutions across Canada, all these different types of passports and requirements that are different from province to province to province. The NDP is wanting to bridge that to make travel between provinces easier and basically put in guidelines that would bring some consistency to the programs that run in each individual jurisdiction. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mel, your response?
Thank you, Adam. And this has certainly become a question of this election, an election, I might add, that was unnecessary in the middle of a pandemic and raising the concerns of so many people around this. The vaccine passport systems that are being implemented are actually provincial jurisdiction, and each of the provinces is choosing whether to or not to implement those programs. We're also seeing other countries around the world introducing some sort of proof of vaccination. Our party is the only one that is saying so far that the proof of vaccination or a rapid test will be what you need. It won't be mandatory vaccine passports. We've provided that option to people. We're the only ones that have done so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Draw names. Next questions, Andrea and Kyle. So wildfires, flooding, megastorms are all realities of us nowadays. What will you do to ensure and maintain rapid access to resources like boots on the ground, emergency housing, support for evacuees, and physical equipment? And we'll start with Andrea.
One of the things that we haven't used as much as we could is that Canada has a contingent of peacekeepers, trained people across the country as our defense forces, to bring those in more rapidly and for them to work with the community organizations, the resource rescue people across the industries that are involved in this. We need more collaboration. There have been all kinds of stories that have come out of this last year about how those links are broken. We need to rebuild them. We need to really work together to make sure that we are prepared, because these incidents are getting more and more frequent and more severe. We need to work together to bring our existing resources into play without the bureaucratic bungling that has gone on. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. And Kyle, response.
We get out of the United Nations. That's the #1 goal. Might seem like that's the opposite of what we should do, but when we look at the results of the forest fire this summer and what Mike Farnsworth of the provincial government brought the government of British Columbia into in 2017 with the UNDR Sendai Agreement, which essentially slows down our response to all these disasters, adds a lot of bureaucratic red tape. Climate change is happening and we're aware of this. The human species is a highly technologically advanced and quite intelligent species. We can take care of all the effects of climate change. We can dig deeper ditches, dig deeper waterways. We can have higher berms. We can raise bridges. We can mitigate for fires by building deciduous forests within a 2-kilometer buffer around all the towns in British Columbia. We can invest in Canadian technology for Canadian disasters, but we need to start focusing at home, not from the United Nations, but from Canadian response. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Draw names. We have Ron and Shelley. And our question is, Bill C6 proposes changes to the criminal code, making it illegal in Canada to subject a person to conversion therapy without their consent, and would make it illegal to subject children to practice regardless of consent. Please share your party's position on Bill C6 related to conversion therapy. Ron, we'll start with you.
Quite simply, everyone should be free to love who they love. New Democrats will continue to fight alongside LGBTQ S+ Canadians for full equality. Every person in Canada needs to know that they're safe and supported. And that's why we will immediately legislate the ban on conversion therapy. We will end the discriminatory blood ban. We will ensure equal access to gender affirming treatments and procedures through the public health care system. We will add sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression to the Employment Equity Act, and take steps to create a clear, safe path for LGBTQS+ refugees. We will work collaboratively with these organizations and ensure that they are all adequately resourced.
Thanks, Ron. And Shelley, response.
We will ensure that, unfortunately, the Conservatives blocked us so much that we were not unable to pass the Bill C6, so it died at Senate. This is unacceptable. That needs to get passed. So Bill C6 is so important to the lives of so many, and that it is unacceptable that we're still going through this. Also, as far as the blood bans, we will work to get that through because people need to be able to support their communities however they want. We are absolutely 100% supportive of LGBTQ2S+ communities, and we are going to do everything that we can to ensure that their rights are recognized just the same as everybody else's. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Draw names. We have Mel and Andrea for the next question. And it is, what is your party's stance on the possible expansion of fossil fuel production in Canada? We'll start with Mel.
Well, I think we first need to recognize that Alberta and the energy sector has been a large part of our economy for a number of years. We can see a gradual transitioning off of that. Our plan to secure the environment addresses part of this. We will incentivize the use of electric vehicles, the use of hydrogen-powered vehicles. We can do so much here in Canada. Our liquefied natural gas, for example, we can produce it cheaper and at a better, under better environmental standards than anywhere else in the world. If we can market and export that LNG to places like China and other countries in Asia that are still reliant on coal or diesel or other dirtier fuels for their electrical energy, we can continue to use some of our fossil fuel use and exports as we gradually transition to greener opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. And Andrea.
I think the Green Party is well known for being against the expansion of any fossil fuel production in Canada. I'd like to point out in response to Mel, China is already producing almost 50% of the world's electric vehicles, and by 2023, will be producing the majority of the world's electric vehicles. Other countries are moving much faster to renewables than Canada has. And so I believe that what we need to do is take the support that we're giving the fossil fuel industry and actually support the renewable energy industry. So not just wind and solar, deep untapped geothermal, which we have here in British Columbia, as well as some of the marine deposits. We need to move fast because we've had wildfires and droughts. The world is getting hotter and drier. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I will draw a name for our next question. It's Shelley and Kyle this time. Our next question: what is your party's position on climate change? And we'll start with Shelley.
Well, that's extremely broad. As an MP, we are going to push with my colleagues to deliver this ambitious climate plan that we have. We have enshrined a law to reach our net zero targets by 2050. We have accountability every 5 years to reach certain targets. And I'm going to ensure that our government is accountable. We're moving through this climate disaster, and we are going to make sure it's affordable and effective. And we have this costed plan, which is fantastic for getting us through. We have green jobs being built. We have come so far from 2015, and we actually believe that climate change is real, and we have got on track to get our 2050 net zero goals. Yep.
Thank you, Shelley. And Kyle, your response?
You know, they always sit here and tell us they care about affordability, they care about making life easy, yet they want to tax us on carbon, and Canadians emit about 1,650 cubic tons of carbon a year, which is one of the highest in the world. I'd say we would stop the carbon tax because it doesn't work. We would stop implementing such restrictions at that net zero carbon, because what that is going to do is going to make cost of farming go up, building buildings go up, building apartment buildings going up. They want to tell you that climate change is going to cost, and they're right, but it's because they keep taxing us and doing nothing with the money. What we need to do is we at least need to assert ourselves as a species to mitigate the effects of climate change and stop blowing up people's for this, because it's not working anymore. Carbon tax is a gas that is not affecting the atmosphere as much as the other, like the sun, for instance. So, I mean, we can't tax the sun. Let's stop taxing carbon. Let's make life more affordable for Canadians so they don't have to go to work twice in a day and expel that much more carbon. Simple as that.
Thank you, Kyle. Quick names. We have Shelley and Andrea. The next question is, what is your party's position on the National Pharmacare Initiative, and what will your party do to reduce medication costs? And we'll start with Shelley.
So we have actually already in negotiations with provinces to get the National Pharmacare Plan going. It has taken some time because we really wanted to make sure that we have a plan that's comprehensive and is going to work for all Canadians. So this is something that is already in progress, and we are going to be moving forward with this, working with the provinces.
Thank you, Shelley. And Andrea, your response.
I am delighted to hear that, Shelley. That is great news, because it's been a recommendation of various healthcare providers across this country for years. So if that's actually moving forward, that is what a number of other countries do, where they buy medications across the entire country and get the savings that come with buying greater quantities. I know that it's a hard thing to do. The federation that we have of government at both levels, both provincial and federal, having responsibility for healthcare. So certainly the Green Party stands for a National Pharmacare Initiative, and that's exactly what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Draw names for our next question. We have Kyle and Shelley. What is your party prepared to do to resolve the ongoing issues of childcare? We'll start with Kyle.
Around childcare, we do not have one specific policy for childcare, but what we do have is a robust set of economic policies that will make it easier for Canadians to afford childcare, to afford the extras in life, and to go beyond that. We believe it's time to stop pandering with your tax dollars and taking $5 out of one person's pocket to distribute to a few others. It doesn't benefit Canadians in the end. Eventually, everybody requires a government subsidy to live. We got to go back to community-based economics, where we focus on the community making more, retaining more, and being able to spend more on themselves. I believe that a robust set of economic policies will make living quite more affordable for Canadians, instead of continuously promising billions and billions and billions and billions of more in deficit spending, which has created inflation and made it unaffordable to have a family, which you can see in our birth rate right now, which needs to increase. We need to make life more affordable for all Canadians.
Thanks, Kyle. And Shelley, your response.
So we have a $10 a day childcare plan. We already signed agreements with the province of BC. So this plan is already in the process. And it doesn't just get to $10 in 5 years. The agreement that we have gets you to 50% reduction next year. So we are the ones that are making these agreements. We're the ones that have the plan on the ground as we speak. The Conservative plan is going to cancel those agreements, and they are going to give you a tax rebate. So if you cannot afford childcare, you are not going to be able to pay for it, because they're not going to give you any money until the end of the year. The NDP don't have a plan, and they can't tell you how they're going to get to $10 a day childcare. And on top of that, we're going to be creating 250,000 new spaces, including those in rural areas. I talked to Armstrong. They don't have a facility. So I will ensure that we get the funding to get that facility into Armstrong, so that we can have all of us covered under this $10 a day childcare. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Draw names. Okay, I don't have any more names. So in the event of fairness, I would like a yes or no answer from each candidate. We'll start with Andrea, then Kyle, then Shelley, then Ron, then Mel. During this pandemic, I got this next question, but during this pandemic, the province have directed the lead on restrictions. What is your party's stance on vaccine passports, restrictions, and mandates? For or against, yay or nay? Starting with Andrea, please.
For vaccine passports, restrictions, and mandates. The party's stance is for that. I would like to temper that with my own response. However, as a member of the Green Party, I am able to speak for my constituents. In my experience, one size fits all rules rarely fit everyone well. And so while the party stance is to go ahead with the passports, restrictions, and mandates, I recognize that there are some people in our communities. My son's best friend had a very bad reaction to his first vaccine. I know that there are some people in our communities that have health concerns that it's not necessarily a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
The People's Party of Canada, as far as I know, is the only party in Canada right now on a federal stance that says absolutely no to the vaccine passport, absolutely no to vaccine restrictions, absolutely no to vaccine mandates. The Conservatives may say that they don't, but it's only federal. Like Mel said, they can only control the province, and they're not like us. This party has offered to help Canadians at the provincial level to stop the provincial governments from enforcing these vaccine mandates, passports, and restrictions. It must leave. It is against the charter. It's against Section 15 of the charter. We need to end these programs now, because we're losing a quality of life in this country that many people.
Thanks, thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Kyle. Shelley?
Since it was just a yes or a no question, I'm going to answer yes, we are for.
Thanks, Shelley. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Kyle. Shelley?
Since it was just a yes or a no question, I'm going to answer yes, we are for. 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 Yes, we
Thanks, Shelley. And Ron?
As I mentioned earlier, obviously this is provincial jurisdiction, but the NDP is in favor of having a consistent system across the board. So I guess the short answer, if it's yes or no, is yes. Public health restrictions, mandates, whatever, if they're put in place to serve a purpose and that purpose is met, then that's what they're there for. And the vaccine passport announcement drove vaccine hesitancy down. So we had about a 200% increase in vaccination rates because it takes the people that are sitting on the fence off the fence because they realize there's some potential restrictions.
Thank you. And Mel?
Thank you. I first want to say that health choices are personal choices, and we will not make vaccines mandatory. I do encourage everyone that is able to go out and get the vaccine because it seems to be the best way out of this pandemic for all of us. But we will not be enforcing mandatory vaccines. We believe that health choices are personal choices, but they need to be made with concise and accurate information. And that's where the current government has failed to provide that clear and concise information for people to be able to make their own choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. And thank you to all the candidates. You will receive a full copy of the questions asked this evening, and you're encouraged to post your answers on your website or your social media channels. Thank you for all of your answers. A reminder to everyone that all the candidates will receive all these questions, obviously, and encouraged to answer them. The closing comments are the last thing. So we all get, not we, you guys all get 2 minutes for your closing comments. We're going to start in the opposite order. So it'll go Ron, then Andrea, then Shelley, Kyle, and Mel. We'll start with Andrea for 2 minutes. Or sorry, we'll start with Ron Johnston and with your 2-minute closing.
First off, I'd like to thank the Salmon Chamber of Commerce for hosting this meeting and giving each of the candidates an opportunity to address your members and the community. I'd like to thank everyone who's chosen to be here and watch and be active in the decision-making process. And I want to thank each of my fellow candidates for putting themselves forward to represent our riding. Every year that goes by without taking action on the issues that matter to all of us is creating a kind of deficit. Many have heard municipalities talk about infrastructure deficit. That's when the ongoing funding needed to maintain, repair, or replace deteriorating infrastructure is not set aside to deal with the looming problem. On a more personal level, if you don't put aside money to pay your heat bill, then you have double plus penalties to pay next month. And if you don't pay next month, it just gets worse and worse until it feels insurmountable. We can't continue to build this deficit of action on the important issues just because the solutions might be difficult. Our governments have not hesitated time and again to hand out hundreds of billions of dollars every year in subsidies and bailouts to big corporations who use that money to pay executive bonuses and then say to us, sorry, we just can't afford to spend a few $1 million on clean drinking water for your community. The NDP has the will and we will put people before profits. We have always been a workers' party and we will get ready to get the work done and ensure that nobody, no families like yours or mine, get left behind as we navigate through the pandemic recovery and move forward into a better future that we can build together. My name is Ron Johnston and I will be your voice fighting for change. I am ready for better. Are you? Please vote for me in the Canada NDP.
Thank you, Ron. And Andrea?
Thank you, Adam. Thank you to the other candidates who've put their names forward, and thank you to you, our audience. This was a tough forum. There were a lot of really good questions and obviously a very well-informed audience. I clearly don't have all the answers, but what I do know is I know how to listen. I know how to ask thought-provoking questions, and I know how to move through inclusion to collaboration to structure specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based plans. I know how to monitor and evaluate. I know how to deliver projects on time and at or under budget. I would like to be the representative for this riding, bringing both a vision of social equality and climate action. Please vote Gunner for Green. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. We'll go with Shelley.
Thank you for the chamber for hosting us this evening and for everyone here joining us in the conversation as well. Thank you for all the other candidates for speaking tonight on their individual platforms. Before I wrap up, I actually do want to give some credit to the other parties here. I want to say I appreciate the climate plan of both the NDP and the Green Party. They're ambitious and they clearly take it seriously, which is why I know I'd be able to work with them as we all have the same goal in mind. The Conservative Party is making health a priority, mental health a priority. As we saw through COVID, mental health affects everyone, so we really need to ensure that we have resources available to address mental health. This is how we can work across party lines. This is how we can disagree on some things and we can agree on others. Our whole goal is to provide what is best for Canadians, and we need to find a way to come together to make that happen. I promise you, as MP, I will build relationships across party lines, and I will work with my colleagues to get things done. When you go to the polls in the coming days, I would like you to consider both the critical nature of where we are in fighting COVID-19 on housing, and most urgently, climate change. And also we need a representative from this region. We don't need more of the same representing the party to our region. We deserve a representative that's engaged, energetic, and hardworking and a community builder to take our voices and our needs to Ottawa. So on September 20th, vote Shelley Desautels. Thank you and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you, Shelley. And Kyle.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you to my fellow candidates for joining us tonight and everybody else in the audience. I'm here, I'm a businessman, I'm expecting father, and I'm not looking to be just another politician. I'd like to be a community leader. We have the ability in our party to do as we need for our people, as we are the only party without a party whip. What is a party whip? Well, it's somebody who says, if you don't go with the plan, like Mr. O'Toole says, it will be top down, you're out of here. Like Jonah Smith, who was fired for not being with or for vaccine mandates and mandatory vaccines, a Conservative Party of Canada candidate from up in the Yukon. As Shelley was saying, we no longer want a party here that bestows their ideology on us, the community. We want to take our community voice to Ottawa. And that's what I'm standing here in front of you today to do. The most contentious issue, again, is the vaccine passports. And I'd just like to highlight this, that they want to say it's a provincial issue. It's not. There are 338 powerful individuals, and they're called member of parliament. Every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination. And that continues. That is section 15 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Liberty and life, that is our responsibility as a federal government to protect that. I would protect that. And I know that this community, being a large, small business community with not many box stores in it, is going to suffer from a vaccine passport system. I will stand up for this community. I will fight for this community, and I will do as you ask me to do. I'm not here to bestow my knowledge or my power upon you. I'm here to take your power to Ottawa and fight for you. So vote for the People's Party of Canada on September 20th, and we'll get this country back to normal. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. On to Mel.
Well, thank you again, Adam, and the Chamber for hosting this event tonight. And to those who thoughtfully composed and submitted questions about your concerns. The North Okanagan-Shuswap region is its own unique area with challenges central to rural living, large geography, and sparse population in some places. Of course, that's what draws people to live in the area. Yet services for those residents are still needed on a local basis. I'm pleased to say that our plan to secure the future has many elements, specifically for rural populations, such as access to high-speed internet for all Canadians by 2025, a set aside of infrastructure funds for small communities, and more supports for both rural tourism and small business. We've spoken this evening about the need to get Canadians back to work, to get on track to achievable emissions goals, and to reunite our nation. A nation that recognizes the importance of good mental health, economic health, and the accountability of those you elect and want to trust. I would invite you to read about these and more important opportunities for rural communities in our platform, Secure the Future, at www.conservative.ca/plan. It's been an honor to serve you these past 6 years, and I pledge to continue to work hard for everyone in the future should you choose to re-elect me. On September 20th, please vote Mel Arnold. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. And thank you to all the candidates. Yeah, tough questions, tough election. Thank you for all that attended. And I know it's not always easy to watch people on Zoom, but we had good attendance. On election day, please go vote. So September 20th, early voting is going on as we speak. You can go to elections.ca to find your voting stations. And again, thanks for everyone. And from the Chamber of Commerce and Salmon Arm, we really appreciate you guys attending. Thank you.